Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to quickly walk you through the Canvas course that I've created to support you as we transition to remote instruction for healthful living and physical education. I'm also going to share with you a couple slides I made and some resources for this. So we're going to start here with the presentation that's embedded in the Canvas course that'll be shared with you. I've given you a tiny URL to this as well. If you want to access it in Google, you can. Our objectives are going to be to reconnect with our students in an online environment. We're going to get everyone comfortable with online and remote instruction. So we're going to start thinking about best practices, tools that will engage students, and we're going to share resources and ideas for online instruction as well. And then we'll continue to provide supplemental educational resources for our students. So the first thing that we have to do is set up our learning management system. Most of you on Thursday and Friday began work towards this. You should have taken the Canvas course that was created called Canvas 101, unless you were familiar with Canvas or you've already established yourself in another LMS like Google Classroom. If you're using something and you're comfortable with it and your students are comfortable with it, continue using it. You don't have to switch over to Canvas. So if you have everything in Google Classroom and your kids know what your expectations are with that and they've been using that with you, then go ahead and keep using that. If you don't have an LMS or a learning management system, then you need to start to get yourself set up in Canvas, and this course will help you. So there are two types of online learning formats. One is synchronous and one is asynchronous. Asynchronous is what we're doing right now. It's a blend of online and offline. So materials are being delivered electronically. You're accessing them through the Canvas course, but you're also watching a video of me. Now notice when I'm doing an asynchronous format, I'm using Zoom instead of a screencast. So tools like Loom or Screencast-O-Matic, I like using Zoom because I know that my kids will see my face in the top corner, and it just goes a long way to create a community and to let them see you and connect with you and to make an online situation a little less, I guess, lonely. I can't think of a better way for it, like, to describe it other than that, but when I see somebody talking to me from the top of the corner and I can see their face and their expressions, and I'm familiar with them because they were my teacher, it just gives me this sense of connection. And so that's why I prefer to do it this way. And so whenever I do address you asynchronously, you'll always see me in the top corner as long as I have access to Zoom. If you're doing a synchronous format, then that's virtual face-to-face. So for that right now, you can use Microsoft Teams, which I've linked down here. It's part of Office 365 to connect with your students. It's a great way to connect with them, to let them see and hear you. When you do have a synchronous session, you want to try to focus a little less on the content and a little more on answering their questions about what you've put on your Canvas course or LMS, and also just checking in with them, giving them an opportunity just to have a conversation with you or with their peers and just feel connected again in that community. So our first steps, if you haven't already, or if you're not already currently using an LMS, go ahead and set up your course in Canvas. For help, you can have the Canvas course here, Canvas 101, which will walk you through those basic steps of getting into Canvas and setting up the new courses. You also need to take the virtual professionalism course. This just walks you through what's expected of you when you're meeting with students, be it asynchronously or synchronously. It's really the same as if you were standing up in front of them in the classroom. You want to make sure you're professionally dressed. I'm not meeting with you right now in my bathrobe with my hair on top of my head. I have a neutral background behind me. I've shut my office door to keep the cats locked out because they're a distraction. I did have to go out and ask my husband to turn down his music because I could actually hear it. So things like that. I'm not eating or drinking while I'm talking to you. Um, just anything you can do to minimize any sort of distraction, and to keep that professional atmosphere, even in an online environment. So if you are going to meet with your students synchronously, you want to establish your meeting times and office hours and make sure they're displayed in Canvas so kids are aware of that. And then you want to spend your first few meetings, especially those synchronous ones, making sure students are becoming comfortable with the online tools and the format. So focus on the tool over the content, getting to use Microsoft Teams, or if you ask them to check in using a Padlet, just getting them used to using that tool. And introduce one tool at a time for them. Don't start with 13 new tools that they've never seen before. Pick one, let them practice with it, and then maybe in a week or the following week, introduce a second tool or a new tool. So what this should look like for healthful living and PE, any mini lesson or recorded video like what I'm doing with you now should be 20 minutes or less. For middle schools, you'll create 2 mini lessons a week. For high schools, you'll create 3 mini lessons a week. You'll keep your outside work to 30 minutes or less a day. So anything that they're doing outside of Canvas, if you give them homework, anything like that, less than 30 minutes. You want to provide opportunities for students to collaborate. Again, this is a very different and uncharted situation. And kids can get very lonely or feel very isolated when they're not able to go to school and talk to their peers. So give them opportunities online to talk with one another and work with one another, just like they would if they were in your classroom. Provide opportunities for students to engage with healthful living and physical education through reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And let them still develop those skills as well. High school, you also will need to meet synchronously once a week with your students. So you'll hold office hours and they'll actually call in and you will virtually meet with them and discuss. So we're going to look at what this would look like in a Canvas course. What I've developed below is my idea or my example of what if I were teaching PE or health online. This is what my Canvas course that I would use with my kids looks like. I've developed this to be a shell, so feel free to cut and paste this. It won't bother me. I'm here to help you. So take what you want from it. But I would start with the date up here and introduction to my students. If I'm going to have my office hours and that synchronous meeting, when I'm doing that here. And then I have my mini lessons. So the first thing in my mini lesson is a video. And I would start every mini lesson with this, where I simply talk through what it is I want kids to do and show it to them. Again, online learning can be very confusing for kids. So you want to give them as clear and concise directions as you possibly can. So they would watch this video. It's only 2.5 minutes long. It talks them through all of this. And then they would begin by answering 2 questions in the Canvas discussion. Canvas discussions are a great way to create online community and get kids collaborating. So they click on the Canvas discussion, they have the directions here. I do ask them that after they answer the questions to comment on at least 2 classmates' responses. They can also like responses, which is something they're familiar with because of social media. But this forcing them to comment on 2 classmate responses just creates that situation where you're forcing the issue of the conversation, and eventually it's something that they'll become comfortable with. But you just want them, even if they just go in and they say hi or I really like this idea to someone, again, you're building community in an online environment. So they would answer the 2 questions, and then I always embed a link that takes me back to the main page, because there are no back buttons like this in Canvas, if you see down here. So they'll answer, hit reply, put their response in, and then they can click and it takes them right back to this page. Then I've given them, after you've answered the questions, here are 2 choices for you. I link everything that I want them to collaborate on or to answer in Google. I force a copy and ask them just to share it with me. I also provide a printable resource. That way, if parents want to print or if schools have to print, they can do that. When I find articles or things to read, I do try to find something that's available also in Spanish. And if it's something that has a video, I try to find closed captioning or something that can be read aloud to kids as well. So second lesson, after they've done this, they come back to this. They have 3 choices here of things that they can do. And then we finish with a Canvas discussion as well to synthesize everything that we've learned in these 2 lessons. If this were high school, you would have your 3rd mini lesson below this. For physical education, same setup. I would introduce with the video here as well to tell them what to do. I kept it simple. I said this week we're just going to focus on 1 minute fitness challenges. I asked them to create a log to share it with me. And then I also created a Canvas discussion board because again, we want to create that online community and give kids a chance to collaborate with one another. So they'll go into the Canvas discussion board after the 2 things or 3 things if it's high school that they do, and answer some questions and comment on their peers. So the last thing I want to show you is the last slide in my slide deck here are a list of resources. So NCDPI has put together a pretty intensive remote learning website with a lot of resources. Stanford Teach Anywhere has some resources, but it also has some tips and tricks for online learning. Shape America, Open Phys Ed, and Nemours were 3 that were listed on the NCDPI website that I went through. They have some pretty solid resources, I think. They've made everything available right now for free. Nemours is where I found the Spanish and English articles, as well as the articles that could be read aloud by the computer. And then this is a Google Doc that I've created for you. I've gone through those 3 resources that I mentioned, and I vetted them and pulled out some lessons and put them together for you here too. So it just gives you a place to start or a jumping off point. I will be holding office hours. I will be posting those very soon on the Canvas course. I'll hold them every day. I'll just open a Zoom meeting and I'll sit and wait and see if anybody chimes in or joins me and has questions for me. In the interim, if you're not able to wait for office hours, please feel free to email me or call me. I'm here to help you and support you. So good luck, and thank you for doing what's best for our kids in this really kind of crazy time. Keep me posted and let me know what I can do to help you out. Thanks. Have a good night. Bye.